This is your World War III Day X update. Much better acoustics today that you've become accustomed to over the years. I apologize for that crazy echo on the video that I released earlier today. You see, I was on the toilet and I decided to make a video. No, just kidding. Contrary to many of the popular comments on that video, I would never do a video on the toilet, not because it's rather uncouth and inappropriate, but because that's my private time, okay? I don't get much of it throughout the day, so like hell, you're getting my time when I'm in my favorite place in the whole wide world. Now, all I gotta say today is Scheiße am Dampfen. That's a new word I learned today. That's SHTF in German. Scheiße am Dampfen. The shit is hitting the fan. Everywhere, there is a morass getting murkier by the day in the Middle East. Today, after the attack on the Golan Heights, in which 180 rockets were launched from Lebanon in the last 24 hours, and I should add that only a few dozen were intercepted. Okay, now I don't know if that was intentional, but something is going on with the Iron Dome, and the Axis can smell it. So what did Israel do? They decided to carpet bomb the hell out of several cities in southern Lebanon. I do believe that this is the beginning of the war with Lebanon. It's going to start this week. I know we've been saying this for a long time now, and it's been probably one of the most anticlimactic, always approaching but never quite getting there, asymptotic events that we are anticipating that we never seem to quite materialize, but here it is. We're here. This is it. Blinken's final flight of fancy to the Middle East has been concluded, and it's all downhill from here. So what's going to happen right now is, because the Iron Dome clearly is either being preserved or has already been exhausted, or the boundaries of it has been exceeded, we're going to see some big shit go down in the not so distant future. The Abraham Lincoln, USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier with the most advanced fighter jets in the world, I believe they have the F-35C variants, which we're going to see in action at this point in time, are now in the theater of conflict. They're in the central theater of command. And that means that there are currently, I believe there are 3 aircraft carriers, if I'm not mistaken, and several other support ships. The Abraham Lincoln is to replace another one. So this means that if the shit's going to go down, and I may be wrong about that, there may only be 2 that it's replacing one. Either way, it's a very large portion of the U.S. Navy that is currently between the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea right now. So if shit's going to go down, it's going to go down right away. It appears as though peace talks, that whole ruse has basically fallen through entirely. Netanyahu continues to hamstring the deal. We have Sinwar. The only glimmer of hope in the whole thing is that Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, the remaining leader of Hamas, has said that reportedly that if he is ensured that he will have passage either out of the Gaza Strip and he will not be targeted for termination after the peace talks subside, which is just, I mean, that you would even believe them even if they said that to be true at this point in time is just silly. So I have a feeling that that's fake news. He knows that he is going to probably be a martyr if this thing goes on long enough, and you know, the Scheisse is going to hit the fan, as they say, and it's about to explode in the Middle East big time. But the fact that they've seemingly depleted the Iron Dome, a few things could be happening here. It could just be that the Iron Dome has been overwhelmed by Hezbollah rockets, and this is why they're only shooting down a very small fraction of the rockets that Hezbollah is shooting. And this is their lower tier stuff, okay? This is just the stuff that they're burning before the big war starts. This is like Russia throwing its shitty equipment at the problem first and saving its best stuff for later. it could just be that the Iron Dome is just exhausted and it's overwhelmed. And the attrition against Israel is working in that it costs way too much for an Iron Dome interceptor when compared to a Hezbollah rocket per se. It's like 100 to 1 in some instances. At least it was with Hamas. It could be that. It could be that maybe they're just using them sparingly, and that they're avoiding shooting down ones that they know are not going to do a whole lot of damage, which is actually a smart thing to do. If you know that the probability and the trajectory of a rocket, it is not going to be a threat to civilians or anything substantial, why not just let it fall in the middle of an open field? Why shoot it down? The other thing could possibly be that maybe there's a little bit of intentional looking the other way, okay? A little bit of letting it happen on purpose, we'll say. Now, I'm not saying that that's happening for sure, but it's one of those things that could certainly work to galvanize your population against a threat. So perhaps they're leveraging that by just letting a few through in order to get people all gung-ho for the next major conflict on the northern front. That's what could potentially be happening, but everybody is eerily quiet right now. The entire axis of resistance, from the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, who's been fairly outspoken in recent months, haven't heard a peep from him, likely OPSEC related. We haven't heard anything from the Houthis as of late. I believe that they targeted a oil tanker a few days ago, but above and beyond that, there hasn't been a whole lot of noise created by them. We haven't heard much from the IRGC. We haven't heard much from the Iraqi militias as of late, and we haven't really seen a whole much of even aggressive rhetoric from the Iranians. They keep saying the same thing, that, we're going to attack and it's going to be different, and they're threatening things like now they're saying that, well, it might actually be coming from the ground while you're looking at the sky. So they're using all this cryptic messaging to continue the psychological operation, but everything seems to point towards a major coordinated attack taking place. And when that happens, of course, Israel, the Dimona nuclear plant, all of the critical infrastructure, Tel Aviv could be blacked out. It could be total chaos and pandemonium, which is why there's a lot of people trying to flee Israel. And it could be part of the reason why they've suspended flights there up until like next year. Now, you would only do that if there was a very strong likelihood that a war was about to break out. And some people might say, well, why wouldn't they, just play it by ear? Well, you don't want to book flights because then you got to refund everybody's tickets. So it's kind of a gamble with the airlines. They have to either say, hey, we're just not going to travel there. And if the risk has been determined to be so high that many major airlines are discontinuing flights to Israel, then shit's about to go down. So I think that we're probably going to see a coordinated attack by the entire Axis, because they have to go for the jugular. That's the only way they're coming out of this thing, and that likely means attacking US ships at the same time. Perhaps Ukraine is aware of this, what's about to happen there, and their attempts at invading Russia, with the help, I should add, of American private military contractors, busted. Forward Observation Group published photos of mercenaries from the Kursk region. I'm not sure why they would do this. Were they given the green light to do this? Who decided that this was a good idea to let the Russians know, even though they're going to capture many mercenaries, and they're killing mercenaries left and right all the time there. They just don't talk about it that much, but they are. Does Ukraine know that attention is going to be taken away from there soon, and that the United States is going to have to start to pull some of its funding? Are we going to see some retrenchment in spending on the European front? Is Poland going to start to take the reins there, getting incredibly aggressive in terms of a lot of their rhetoric lately? Lukashenko's nuclear brinkmanship is approaching very dangerous levels. Many people right now are talking about an imminent nuclear attack in some capacity, overstepping nuclear red lines. We are so close, and now they're even talking about opening up other fronts inside Russia, which is why Vladimir Putin has now created 3 new military districts, which are, of course, are susceptible to these attacks. Now, what you're looking at behind me here, this is an image of the Kursk nuclear power plant. As you can see, they're starting to dig trenches along the nuclear power plant. Now, that is very close to the plant. You would only be doing that if you thought that there was definitely a potential, because the thing with the power plant is that it's a very enticing target, because once you capture it, all you have to do is capture it. Because what are the Russians going to do? They have to go in with either special ops and shoot guys in hallways and tear that place apart. If you can capture it, though, right, it would be very hard for them to recapture, which is the case with the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, because it is a big shield. It is not a human shield, but it is a shield in the sense that, number one, you're not supposed to target nuclear power plants because it's a violation of the Geneva Convention, but it's also, like holding a hostage. You're holding somebody hostage on their country. It's like the equivalent of a person being held hostage, only with this one, if you start firing bombs at it, then you're going to cause a radiological disaster, which is going to destroy the entire region. So this is what's going down right now as American private military contractors storm Kursk. Some people are saying that this is a last-ditch Hail Mary and that Ukraine is on the back foot. But I just don't even know. From somebody who looks at the information every single day, I can honestly say I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what shape or form the Ukrainians are in. My gut is telling me, yeah, they're probably mostly screwed. Lots of the military data coming out from the front suggest that they've been attrited to the point where the front lines are collapsing in the Donbass area, but it's still very slow. And is that front collapsing because they have these reserves in other places that they're getting ready to redeploy them? Are we going to see a movement in Zaporozhye? Are we going to see a movement in the Bryansk region? There's plenty of things that can still happen at this point. So these are the 3 regions. So you have the Belgorod region, you have the Kursk region, and you have the Bryansk region. And so far they've been doing the cross-border incursions, the Russian partisans into Belgorod throughout the duration of the conflict. This is the amount of territory that Ukraine has claimed to have locked down and is now building defensive lines, although they continue to be bombarded heavily by pretty much everything the Russians can throw at this region, which is why they evacuated 200,000 people out of it, because they're just going to, destroy it. And Bryansk, but the incursion into Bryansk was very small. It was like a platoon size of guys who, were just causing mayhem. So that's what's going down. Meanwhile, you have Belarus mobilizing towards the borders. So Belarus is moving divisions of troops towards the southern border. Poland is currently mobilizing. So, the shit's getting ready to go down in that part of the woods. Interestingly, we had a situation today where this drone, this is one of those drones that looks like a little Cessna plane that Ukraine loads up with explosives and flies all over the place. Now, these drone attacks have been going so deep, and it looks like it just got shot out of the sky there. I mean, these things are, you could probably hit them out of the sky with a slingshot. They're going so damn slow. But because they can fly under radar and they require visual identification, you can sneak them by. But some people are suspecting that this was so close, okay, that this had to, like, this is 1,800 kilometers from the front. 1,800 kilometers. So some people are suspecting, and we've suspected this for a long time on this channel, that maybe these drones are coming from the Baltic. I don't think that Finland would permit Ukraine to shoot drones into Russia, considering they share this massive border. And, you know, they're just a few nukes away from sinking Helsinki, okay? But it could be that Ukraine, because these drones don't require, you know, like a massive aircraft carrier or anything like that. They require maybe a small-sized boat in order to launch from, and you could do that anywhere in the Baltic Sea. So did I say the Black Sea? The Baltic Sea. And so if we know that they're out there blowing up pipelines, if they can have the wherewithal to blow up the pipelines, then surely they can get on a boat, get some drones loaded up, get out there and start blowing some shit up, right? Especially if they're in international waters. Technically, you know, who's gonna enforce that? Certainly not NATO countries, that's for sure. So we've had some internet disruptions in Moscow. If you guys think things are cooling down, man, holy shit, are you in for a rude awakening? Just last night, Moscow had the biggest ever drone attack since the start of the war. The biggest drone attack on Moscow since the start of the war. Now, allegedly they shot most of them down. I think one or two might have made it through, not inside the city, but within the oblast. So this thing is getting out of control. This is out of control big time, and there's no signs that this thing is going to slow down. So everything we've been saying is true. The risks are, you know, we've been saying for a year that the risk of nuclear war is higher than ever before. It's just like the price of gold. It just breaks a new record every day in terms of the risk factors here. So, you know, none of this preparedness is going to be in vain. I mean, prepping is never in vain anyways if you do it right, because the things that you invest in, there always is a use case for, even if things don't hit the fan. But nowadays, I mean, you know, it's all going to make sense. It's all culminating into day X, unfortunately. What else do we got to talk about here? So Iran has issued a notice to airmen for the next 2 days. So they keep doing this. One of these days, it's going to be the real deal. The whole objective here is to fill the air with white noise, create all kinds of subterfuge and confusion, so nobody knows, excuse me, when the actual strike is going to come. So the idea is, if your enemy can see you from space, then let him see you from space, but let him see you in 1,000 different places so he doesn't know where the blow is going to come from. So that's essentially what is going on in that neck of the woods there. So this was what happened in Israel last night in the Golan Heights. Some people call it Israel, some people call it the occupied Golan Heights. Yeah, so Rafi Farber's house got caught by some shrapnel, and this, of course, is cause for escalation. It's just one thing after another. We just inch closer and closer, but you see, neither of these sides, at least the military aspects of it, really want the conflict. Netanyahu is the one who's hamstringing all the deals because he wants the war. Now, I'm sure there's forces that are bigger than Netanyahu who also want a war. Let's not put it all on his lap. But the military generals who are watching these rockets pass by the Iron Dome in the dozens must realize that when Hezbollah breaks out the big guns, which they keep teasing, but we've yet to really see anything yet, which makes some people think they don't have them, but we pretty much know they have them in the hundreds of thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but north of 100,000 sophisticated rockets and missiles and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles possibly even. So, you know, we know that they have the capability and that's just one wing of the axis. So it's only a matter of time before this situation cooks, and you know, when it cooks, it's gonna burn, man. It's all gonna come crashing down really, really fast, I do believe. This is Vladimir Putin, and if you notice, this is him in Chechnya. If you notice something, Where is it here? So you'll see a gentleman. Oh, there he is. You see this gentleman here come with this briefcase. That is the nuclear briefcase, okay? And these guys are deadly serious. Look how close. Notice that the guy who's closest to Putin is the guy with the briefcase. That's a sign, of the imminence of the situation that we're in. He's not standing in the back. I mean, if shit hits the fan in a moment's notice, this guy is at Putin's side every step of the way, you'll notice. Now, one thing I do notice is that Putin's bodyguards are incredibly comfortable with Putin being surrounded by Chechen warlords, which, if you don't want to be surrounded by anybody, it's probably Chechen warlords, even if they're on your side, especially if you're president. There's, religious overtones here. You can just get somebody who snaps and has decided to do some crazy shit so they can, have whatever they can have. They believe they're going to have in all of eternity, right? So I'm surprised, and that's a testament to the strength of this relationship between Putin and the Chechens. It's a testament to the fact that I personally have always thought that the Chechens are just there to scare the Russian MOD, just in case. And this is where Putin is a genius. He has all of these different groups that kind of police one another. It's what they call synoptical surveillance. So, if you don't necessarily trust your own military entirely, then you need some paramilitary groups. You need some private military contractors. And so he has all that. There's numerous different groups, from the Wagner group to the Chechens to the Donetsk fighters to the Russian MOD itself. And they're all somewhat compartmentalized, but they're still interoperable. And to the extent that if one gets out of hand, or if one tries to, foment a coup, then, they can be easily quelled by the other three. So I think what's going to happen now is his visit to Chechnya signals that we're going to see some serious escalation, and that he is there rallying the troops, because he knows that these guys are going to be the ones that primarily are the spearheads. These are the battering rams that are going to be going in there. Now, Mr. Andrew Tate caught a few more cases recently. It's back to the slammer. Now, do we want to go here? Let me just pull up another story real quick before we go here, okay? U.S. investigates American commentators with ties to Russian state TV, New York Times reports. This is from the Kiev Post. Essentially, as I've long stated on this channel, and I've warned people, that as Day X approaches, martial law approaches with it. Everything that you are seeing in Ukraine right now, the lack of elections, the police state, the guys in military fatigue scooping people up against their will and putting them in vans, duct taping people to telephone poles because they looked at you the wrong way, or they spoke Russian once, even though their native language is Russian. The putting people in jail or sending them to the front. Like, 'cause I don't even think you go to jail anymore. I think they just send you to the front. The people dying in custody, the American dual citizens who die in custody and the State Department says nothing. The lack of the fog of war that is so thick there because it's illegal for you to take pictures and video. All of that is coming here when Day X approaches. When World War III comes, that's going to be the blueprint that is employed here. People think, Ukraine, those unlucky bastards. No, they're probably going to end up, when all said and done, be the lucky ones. And I know that sounds crazy, but you never want to, when by the time it gets here, it's going to be more refined. Okay, and they're never going to be able to impose the same draconian style laws in Ukraine as they in the United States as they will in Ukraine. They might be able to in some of the Commonwealth countries, like the one I'm in, unfortunately, and I might not be wearing this hat for too much longer, but because I'll be in jail or something, who knows, but just for advocating for personal rights and freedoms. But that's what's going to happen. So right now they're coming after people. and I've been warning people about this for a long time, you're going to know when the shit's going to hit the fan, because they need the primary influencers not to rock the boat. Ukraine is now within the Overton window. You can speak about Ukraine. You can even speak about Israel to a degree. But there's another litmus test and a red line that people are starting to cross, and I'm not going to get into, which is for the authorities, the powers that be. It's not even so much that it is the issue they're so much concerned about, but they're trying to test to see who are the real dissidents and who are the grifters. I can assure you that most of the people you think are dissidents are just grifters. When it comes down to it, they're just political grifters out there to make a name for themselves and make a lot of money. There are true dissidents within the ranks. There are true people who are bona fide revolutionary spirits, so to speak. And these are the people that are willing to step into the red zone of the Overton window that you're just not supposed to step in. And the only reason why they want to get rid of these people is because they know that when the shooting starts, they're going to have to control people. Controlling your own population is, like 90% of the war, really. If I can't remember I'm sure there's some military quote, something about, if you know yourself, you'll win every battle or something like that. If you can keep your population in check and everybody is in support of the primary objective, whatever that might be, you really can't lose so long as you have the technology and the resources to win. So most empires collapse from within. Putin knows this, okay? And Putin has his population on lock. We don't necessarily have that here. We have something called freedom of speech, and I'm not saying they don't have it in Russia, but if you think you can just say anything in Russia and get away with it, then you've been subdued by their very clever propaganda campaigns as well, which is not to say we don't have propaganda. We do, it's just more evolved. And I guarantee you that Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, they all look at us and they say, man, those guys got it really good, because all of their people actually believe that they're free, okay? Because they get to choose a few different things when really the quality of life at the end of the day isn't much better. So what's happening here is the crackdown is coming. They're coming for people who speak out against what's about to happen. It's going to really start in the Middle East. That conflagration is likely going to spread, and it's going to exacerbate the conflict in Ukraine, because what it's either going to do is pull the United States out, the Russians are going to move forward, and they're going to be right up against Poland, because they're going all the way now. Make no mistake, Russia is going until Ukraine collapses. They're going to Lviv or Lvov, depending on where you are and what you want to call it. That's what's going to happen. And when that happens, it's World War III. In fact, what is his name? Adalanov? The Chechen general I just made a video about 3 days ago. Aladinov, I think that's his name. He said, essentially, that either the war concludes in the next month or so, or it's World War III. The timeline that maps perfectly onto what Alexander Vucic and that trio in the East have been saying for the longest time, the Orbans and the Ficos, that this thing is about to spiral out of control. So they have good intelligence. They know what's about to go down. They know that Ukraine is going to continue to try to target more of these border regions inside Russia and continue to bring the fight to Russia, even though as their lines collapse on the front in that direction. But we're going to see new weapons proposed very soon. It's not hard now to get a F-16 to an F-35. It really isn't. I mean, it is not that difficult, in terms of the minds of the masses accepting that incremental shift. Maybe they go up to, I don't know, what is the next best thing, like an F-15, the new version, the EX or whatever it's called, or maybe an F-18. I doubt they'll give F-22s. That's their best. I don't think any country has F-22s. But they may give them one of these lower-tiered F-35s. And then with that, of course, comes escalation. And you can only escalate vertically or horizontally for so long until it becomes vertical. Okay, so this is what we're seeing right now. They're going after Tate once again because he overstepped the boundary. Him and Candace Owens and Dan Bilzerian and a lot of people within the dissident movements that are arising are starting to, let's just say, step out of the bounds of what is acceptable to talk about. And as a result of that, they're getting the book thrown at them. Now, is there truth to what the claims that they're making against them? I don't think so. I think that this is just, the same old shit. I don't know much of the details of the case, which is not to say that the Tates made their money in a way that I would condone necessarily, but clearly they're going after these guys because they know that they have the following, they're respected, and they're not afraid to say what they want to say. And those are very dangerous characteristics this day and age. All it takes is a small spark to start a fire, guys, okay? And especially if you have religion behind you as well, and especially if you're somebody who's saying maybe these religions should get along with one another. Yeah, that's not good. What's going on elsewhere? In the weather, things are hot. And this is something I don't understand. It is way above average temperatures right now in Europe. In some places, 10 to 12 degrees centigrade above average temperature. Imagine being fully kitted out in a tank. I mean, you guys who did like Desert Storm probably don't need me to tell you this, but imagine being fully kitted out in probably a much more humid region, I should add, in this region of Eastern Europe where they're fighting right now, where temperatures are up to 38 degrees, 36 degrees in some spots. This isn't even the hottest day of the week. So all throughout Ukraine, you're seeing these scalding hot temperatures. Imagine sitting in a military vehicle with no air conditioning, fully kitted out. You're telling me you wouldn't want to, at some point, consider surrendering? I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. I think that's why we're seeing high attrition rates. And I think it's something that's not being talked about enough is the heat. That's probably getting to a lot of people who are just not accustomed to fighting in those kind of temperatures. China and the US set up a contact group for cases of financial stress. What does this signal? Do they expect that the financial shit hits the fan is going to happen very soon? I suspect so. Two sides shared names of contacts during a Shanghai meeting. US-China Financial Working Group held its fifth gathering, this time to set up a contact group in such case of financial stress. What a soft way of saying economic collapse. It's good that they're having those back-channel communications. That could potentially be inroads to conversations about strategic disarmament, nuclear weapons, but I highly doubt it because we're stupid enough to want to go to war with the Chinese. The markets ran scared, but small investors piled in. According to the data by Bloomberg, they say that after the big sell-off recently, that retail is going to now be holding the bag. So retail went and bought this dip. So there was this dip in the stock indices, and retail bought that dip, like really bought that dip, okay? And then I guess they're trying to sell the rip here. They bought the dip and they sold the rip, but not entirely. So there's going to be a lot of retail bag holders, unfortunately, when the shit hits the fan. Warren Buffett isn't buying yet, okay? That's all you need to know. He's not buying yet. I'm not saying he's the end-all, be-all, but that's something to keep in mind. I'll just end on this note that we are currently invading Russia. That's exactly what's happening. Make no bones about it. The Russians know that's what's happening, and it's going to become more and more apparent. I mean, people can say whatever they want about my alarmism on this channel. There was videos I made 2 years ago where I talked about how NATO is fighting the Russians. And people at that time thought, that's blowing the situation out of proportion. Well, here we have American private military contractors okay? American military vehicles, American funding, NATO, or I should really be saying NATO because it's NATO troops, NATO ISR, NATO F-16s, NATO, what are those missiles called? Not the Storm Shadows, ATACMS missiles, long-range ATACMS being fired into Russia, okay? So, I mean, in name only is this not a war between NATO and Russia. And according to Lukashenko, he claims that, I don't know if I have the exact quote here, but he basically claims that nuclear war is very, very close, to put it mildly, okay? I got to go do some more work on the homestead, my friends. I promise you I will never give another video from the toilet again like I did last night. And no, that was not the case. Again, that's my private time. Honestly, I did that video from an attic above my garage, and I haven't put anything in there yet. So it's just echoey, you know, vaulted ceilings, and it's really annoying. I figured I'll give it a shot, but never again. Acoustics are everything when it comes to YouTube, and I apologize for that. If you guys want to pick up a Prepared AF sweater or t-shirt, high quality stuff, it took me a long time to find a supplier who manufactures good quality stuff here in Canada, like good form-fitting, nice quality materials, and we finally found them. So I'm proud that we now can offer our t-shirts. We have many different kinds. Some are a little less obvious, you know, for people who want to remain a little bit more gray man, but want something that can maybe be a bit of a conversation starter, but not scream, I'm a full-blown doomsday prepper. I quite frankly don't give a shit anymore. I wear them everywhere, and that's the thing. I wanted something that I would want to wear, and we're going to also be coming out with like special edition versions where it's different sets of icons, and so you can have an icon that defines you as a prepper, if you will. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, check out CanadianPreparedness.com. Take care.